Melissa Groman. Santa Claus, Santa Claus, Melissa Groman.
With the alarm bells ringing in our ears, 22nd graders stood up and followed our teacher out into the hallway. As we crouched in the corridor, waiting for the fire alarm to end, I heard the tip, tap, tap of feet walking down the hallway. I looked up and I saw a minor celebrity in our tiny town of 2,000, Miss Vivian, the preacher's wife. And she walked right up to me and she squatted in front of me. She handed me a present, a book. And I looked at it and I felt seen because I like to read. But then I read the title and I said, Miss Vivian, this can't be for me. She said, oh, it is, honey. You just read it. And if you got any questions, you just ask your mama and daddy. And I said, well, yes, ma'am, because that's what a good Southern little girl does. And I went home. And I said, Mama, Miss Vivian gave me this book, and I don't know why. Mama looked at it, and I saw her face color change. And she said, oh, honey, I didn't want you to find out like this. I have some bad news, sweetheart. And that's how I found out my parents were getting a divorce. At 7 years old, I believed in God with all of the force and the feeling of childhood innocence. God was as real to me as family, as real as Mama and Daddy. He was as real as Santa Claus. But in spite of all my belief, time marched on, and Daddy moved out. In October of 1982, found me sitting on the cold porcelain edge of our family bathtub while Mama get ready for work. And I had that book of magic open in my lap, the Sears Roebuck Christmas Toy Catalog. And it had fallen open to my dreams. It was 3 stories tall. It had columns and an elevator. It was the most beautiful Barbie dream house that a little girl could dream of, and I wanted it. And I knew how to get it. So I closed my eyes and I folded my hands and I said, Dear Santa, I want the Barbie dream house for Christmas, and I don't need nothing else if I get it. That's all I need. Amen. And then, very excited with my cleverness, I closed that book up and I said, Mama, guess what? I know what I'm getting for Christmas because I prayed to Santa Claus and he's going to bring it to me. And my mama turned around again, and I'm telling you, this must have been a tough year for her. The blood drained out of her face again, and she said, oh, honey, no, honey, we don't pray to Santa Claus. And I said, well, but why not? He's real. I mean, I met him. She says, oh, no, honey, Santa's, I didn't want to tell you like this. Sweetheart, that's just Mama and Daddy. Santa's not real. And I said, but Mama, that can't be true, because, I mean, what about the Easter Bunny? And she said, yeah, that's Mama and Daddy too. And I said, well, okay. But Mama, what about the Tooth Fairy? She said, that's us too. And I took a deep breath, and my world crashed down around me, and I said, but Mama, what about Jesus? And she went, no, honey, no, Jesus is real, and he loves you, and you can pray to him. But it was too late. Cynicism was born in my sweet 7-year-old heart that day, and it has never left. Time marched on. I grew up. A couple of decades later, I had babies of my own, and they're so sweet. And more than anything, I wanted to protect that belief, that knowledge of magic. So when the time came to talk about Santa and what he's going to bring, there was no discussion. I was very frank with my children, and from the time they could talk, there is no Santa. There are only adults playing pretend. There are only adults dressing up. It's what we do for fun, because, grown-ups are crazy. And time kept marching on. And 26 years after that conversation with my mama, I found myself sitting in a different room, waiting in a waiting room while my husband had some tests run. You see, he had been feeling poorly. And we went to have a test. And as I sat in the waiting room, the door opened and a nurse came in and said, "Mrs. Groman, the doctor will see you now." And I walked in, and there were blue curtains surrounding his bed, and they pulled the curtains apart. And truth be told, up to this moment, I kind of thought my husband was being a little bit of a sissy. Like, suck it up, Buttercup, you're just not feeling good. But for the first time, with my husband laying on the sheets, unconscious, eyes half closed, I saw that he really wasn't well. And before I could recover from that realization, the doctor looked at me and said, "Nobody really wants to hear it this way. It's cancer." And my world came crashing down around me. I fell into a chair, and for 30 days, I was 7 years old again. I was 7 years old, and nothing could protect my family. And I didn't know if all my work to protect my children was going to go down the drain. I didn't know if my babies were going to grow up without a daddy. I didn't know if we had him for 20 years or 2 months. And during that time, our family carried us. Our friends carried us. Our church stepped up. They ran fundraisers for us. They paid our medical bills, picked up our children, took them to church, took them to school. And at the end of that time, we received a phone call. My husband was going to be okay. And right after that, another phone call. And the voice on the other end said, "We are going to be Santa for your children this year." And for the first time in my adult life, I experienced the magic of Christmas. I went out on Christmas morning, and I saw the unexpected joy of bottomless giving. And I realized that Mama and I, we had it a little backwards. It was never about a red man in a suit. The truth is, he's just a stand-in for the very real generosity that all of us, me and you, hold in our hearts to give to the people we love and our community.